I'm Linda Hirsch.
I'm Jim Carney, and this is EdCast, a program created and produced by educators for everyone interested in education.
If international test scores are to be believed, American students are falling far behind in math. In city and national exams, math performance is often below grade-level benchmarks. As educators grapple for solutions, preparing teachers qualified to teach math is one avenue for improving students' math abilities. One promising approach is a mentoring model in which master teachers mentor current and future teachers. Today, John Ewing, president of Math for America, discusses their innovative program for identifying and nurturing teachers who can improve both math and science education.
Later on in the program, I'll visit the classroom of a Math for America master teacher. But now, we join Linda and her guest in the studio.
My guest today is John Ewing, president of Math for America. Welcome to EdCast, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I want to start by asking you, in your opinion, is there a crisis in math education today?
I don't like to use the word crisis,
Okay.
but it's pretty clear that we have some major problems in mathematics education in this country, and we see them in two ways. One, if you look at the students coming out of high school, they very few of them actually end up going into mathematics or into mathematics-related fields, and that's a long-term problem because these are areas in which we really need people to do research and to become engineers and to do other things in the future. Over half the PhDs in mathematics in this country are foreign-born. Well more than half the mathematicians in the country are foreign-born. Now that's great for us because we get all of that talent, but it may not last. So that's the first problem. But the second problem maybe is even more important. We see, again, among the adults that come out of high school, that many of them are not particularly mathematically literate in the sense that they don't really have a good feeling for mathematics. And that's a very dangerous situation in a democracy because you want people who understand numbers and who can read a graph. And I think that we're all at risk when we have lots and lots of people who can easily be bamboozled by strange numbers. Even politicians don't often understand the difference between deficit and debt, for example. And so we need people who are not mathematicians, but mathematically literate.
So where does the classroom come into solving some of this?
Yeah. So, of course, students learn mathematics and develop their attitudes about mathematics throughout their education. They start in elementary school. And I must say, I think in elementary school, the reason elementary school is really important is because it's the place where students develop those attitudes about mathematics, the feeling about whether they actually can understand it and what they understand. But it's in secondary, middle, and then high school where students really learn the kinds of mathematics that either they use in college and go on to a career in science of some kind, or come out of high school and sort of have a good feeling for mathematics. And there's been a lot of controversy lately about whether algebra is a very important course. Well, the kind of thinking that goes on in algebra is not, this is not particularly sophisticated mathematics, but it's very basic analytical thinking that, that every adult needs to be able to do. And I think all of those skills are laid down in middle school and high school, and they're not being laid down very well these days. I mean, we have a lot of problems.
So what would be one way, in your mind, of turning this around? I know that Math for America certainly has a teaching approach. Let's talk about that a little bit. What is Math for America?
We do focus on teachers, and there's a good reason for focusing on teachers. I think, of course, curriculum is important. That has to do with the standards and all of those things. With textbooks are important. Technology is important. All of those things are really important. But a teacher is like a conductor. right? You have to take all those educational resources, and somebody has to kind of make sure that they're all working together. And that's the teacher's job, is to make sure that each one is used appropriately. You can have the best curriculum in the world, but if you have a teacher standing in front of you trying to deliver it who actually doesn't know the subject and doesn't understand it, it's not going to make much difference. And so Math for America focuses on teachers, and the idea is to improve the quality of teachers, of mathematics teachers. And we began that with a program in 2004. This was a small group of people headed by Jim Simons, and they had a great idea. The great idea was we don't have enough people in the classroom who are really good at teaching mathematics, who know the subject, who also know the craft of teaching. And their idea was bring them in. And so they started a program for fellows that brought people in who were fairly talented mathematically, who already knew quite a bit of mathematics, trained them in teaching, gave them a year-long course in a master's degree, and then put them in the classroom and gave them a lot of support, mentors and advisors, and asked them to teach for 4 years to make a commitment. During that time, they paid them $100,000 in stipends. And the hope was these people would become great teachers, and indeed they did. Many of them became really good teachers.
What does a good math teacher look like?
A good math teacher understands mathematics.
Would you say that a good math teacher should have math as a major?
Most of those fellows that we brought in actually were math majors, but not all. And so there are lots of people that have gone through economics or engineering or other things, and they know mathematics quite well.
So they have to know the subject area.
They just have to know the subject. A good math teacher also has the right feeling for the subject. I mean, I often say you know the subject up here, but you also have to know it in here, right? You have to actually have a good feeling. You have to like the subject to be a good math teacher. And then thirdly, you actually have to know the craft of teaching. It's not easy. You can't just take somebody who's great at mathematics and drop them into a classroom and say, go ahead and teach, especially in an urban environment. It doesn't work. Or it seldom works.
So what do you try to teach them and you have a mentoring program based on this earlier model?
Yeah, we do. For new teachers, we provide advisors. We actually have people who have been longtime teachers themselves who go in and observe and work with them. And we kind of nurture them along. For the very new teachers in the Fellows program, and I want to get on to the newer programs in a minute, but the Fellows program, we really believe that in the teacher training part of it, in that first year, that they need a very rich, strong clinical experience. That is, to go into a classroom, to work with experienced teachers and in the right way, that those experienced teachers who are what's called the cooperating teacher, that they themselves have been trained in how to work with new teachers. This is the missing ingredient in many teacher training programs. And that all of those things are coordinated so that the fellows who are each talking to one another are also talking to their cooperating teachers, and the cooperating teachers are talking to one another, and they're talking to the people that are teaching them courses. A kind of integrated environment in which the teacher training for a whole year is carefully thought out, carefully orchestrated, and actually a real live apprenticeship that is an experience where the teachers come away feeling that they've gained a lot. And after that very careful year, they go into the classroom, and it's an incredible experience for them, right? It's a very scary experience to be a teacher the first time.
We have such poor retention of teachers that it's quite clear that it's a scary, difficult experience.
So they need a lot of support during the first few years.
And does that support focus on delivering, or I hate the word delivering the content because I believe in a reciprocal model, so does that focus on the teaching of the math, or does it focus on the classroom management, or all of the above?
All of the above. In the beginning, teachers need and different teachers need different things, right? Some walk into the classroom and they're pretty good good classroom management from day one. Not many, but some.
It's tough.
Others struggle and they need just help, and here are some tricks for doing classroom management. Almost everybody needs some help in becoming not teacher-centered, that is not just walking in and trying to deliver the content,
right.
because that's not the right way to
Right.
teach, and we all know that. And they just need help. This is a very complicated profession, you know, and I see it when I walk into a classroom now and I'll see a master teacher, which I'll talk about in a minute,
Yeah.
and a novice teacher, working with a novice teacher. And you'll see the novice teacher give a try at trying to teach something for a few minutes, and then the master teacher will take over, and all of a sudden the whole demeanor of the class changes. Now there's nothing in particular that's different, but the master teacher just knows how to reach out to a student over here and reach out to another student over here, and they know when people ask questions how to either answer them directly or make sure some other student answers them. It's an amazing thing to see a really accomplished teacher manage a classroom that way.
This seems like a perfect segue to take a look and to listen to one of your master teachers. Jim Carney had the opportunity to speak with one of your master teachers, so let's hear
Great.
what he had to say.
What originally drew you to math and mathematics and made you think about math as a career as a teacher?
I always thought math was just fun. It was just playing with numbers and looking for patterns, solving puzzles. I really got into math in college. I had some really awesome professors who loved to they were really challenging and very open-ended. Class wasn't like full direct lecture. And so we could kind of go our own way and play with math for a while. And I just was very independent driven, and I got really into it. And just their excitement and their structures sucked me into math a lot. And that's why I went to grad school right after undergrad.
Do you think that your students have the same kind of enthusiasm for mathematics? Do you find that in them in your classes today?
I think I see it in some students. I think everyone has their own level of enjoyment with math. I think I work really hard. And I say this at the first day of class every year, is that my goal is that everyone leaves this year, leaves high school, enjoying some part of math. You might not like ratios, but you'll suddenly like percents or some algebraic expressions or something. And so I try to really give that enthusiasm to the students through various activities, through just my personality. One-on-one time after school, we do a lot of work on the chalkboard and things and have a good time. Just doing math, I try to make it as enjoyable as possible. In graduate school, I found the program Math for America, and I was interested in applying to become a teacher. So I applied and I got in, and so I moved to New York, and I was a fellow. So I spent 1 year in graduate school. I went to NYU, and then the next 4 years teaching. It was probably the best way to start teaching because I had so much support. The people at Math America were great. They came to visit my classroom and give me extra feedback. The workshops and professional developments at Math America were really helpful in just helping me understand how to reach students, how to manage students, how to structure classroom activities and things. And so I feel like I grew twice as fast as a teacher.
Development's a crucial part of education, educating the educator. How does Math for America promote development amongst its fellows and its master teachers?
The availability and the diversity of professional development is a huge plus, and that's why Math for America I think is so good. It's created by teachers for teachers, so it's kind of comes from the ground up of what people want and are talking about and things, skills people have they want to share. And so I've had experience a wide variety of professional developments. Sometimes I've taken classes that are just math content, just to feel what it's like to be a math student again. I currently lead a professional learning team on discussion and debate in the math classroom. So a lot of the math teachers are really, especially with Danielson coming out, are really trying to encourage kids to talk to each other and would love to find ways to debate. And so as a speech and debate coach, I've incorporated lots of debate structure into my math classroom. And so I've been sharing that through these series of workshops that I've been running. I did some last year, I'm doing some again this year, and it's been a really good experience. So just both learning from people and getting to share my skills and ideas with other people, there's a lot of give and take. It's awesome.
In a recent radio piece, I heard a mathematician talking about math. He was asked why math is necessary, why it should be taught. Unless you're going to become an engineer or mathematics, where will you use it? And I liked his response. He said, some people who are never going to be Rembrandt still like to paint. Some people who write poetry are never going to be Wadsworth. People who do math enjoy it. It's an exercise for the mind, and they like it. What's your philosophy about why math is important and why it should be taught in school?
I think math is necessary for two reasons. The first being just having strong number sense and numeracy is really important. In our world, we're so technology and numbers driven, data driven. It's really important for my students to understand percentages and read charts and things like that very quickly. Most of that math, hopefully, they have learned before they get to me, but it's good that they get stronger with that. But with that, my second reason is I think math really develops your reasoning skills. You can very thoroughly explain and reason through and deduce an answer step by step. I think more than anything, math is about developing those reasoning structures. And we also, in my class, every Friday we start off class by playing the Ken-Ken. It's like a Sudoku. And I think that's one of the ways that I get to have students both reinforce their math skills, but also just get to enjoy math a little bit. You're just kind of having fun and playing a game, solving a puzzle with numbers.
And now back to Linda and her guest in the studio.
Mr. Luzniak is a wonderful spokesperson for your program. Was there anything that particularly resonated for you in the things that he said?
Our teachers are unbelievably eloquent about both teaching and about Math for America. So for me, the key phrase in the middle of that was created by teachers for teachers, right? So Chris is an example of a master teacher, and before I talked mainly about the Fellows program. The master teacher program kind of grew out of that, and it's different, and for many people it strikes them at first as a kind of weird idea here. We look for very accomplished teachers, people that have been teaching. When they apply, they have to have been teaching at least 4 years, so they're always teaching 5 years when they're in the program. We screen them and select them very, very carefully. We have a very complicated process for doing that, and that selection process is what, for us, defines excellence.
What do you look for?
So we look for three things. We look for subject knowledge. We look for craft of teaching, the knowledge of teaching, deep knowledge of teaching. And third, and this one sounds funny to people at first, knowledge of students. So it turns out, and I've been convinced by this over the years, that people, if you really want to be an expert teacher, a really great teacher, you actually have to know the students you're teaching in a deep, intricate way. So
in what way?
Well, you have to know what their needs are.
Okay.
You have to, first, by the way, you have to believe that the students you're teaching can learn mathematics.
Absolutely.
If you don't think so, you can be great at the other things and still be a lousy teacher.
True for everything we teach, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think that, so knowing the students, believing in them, understanding what their strengths and weaknesses are, understanding how you tailor your particular kind of teaching style to that group of students, that's really essential. But all three of those things are important, but it starts with content knowledge. You have to know this subject if you're going to teach it. And we measure that through a very complicated application, very complicated screening exam for the subject, recommendation letters, transcripts, lesson plans, all sorts of things, and then a day-long interview, interviewed by a team of 3 people, a scientist and an educator and somebody from the program. By the time we're done, we really know these people and we bring them in, these master teachers. Once they come into the program, then they become part of this incredible professional community of people that work together. And as Chris says, they mainly design their own workshops, their own mini courses, these professional learning teams. We have this incredible, vibrant group of people all working together every single night, eating massive quantities of pizza. And, but they are a joy to watch.
I was very taken by Chris's presentation of the professional development as being a non-judgmental opportunity for people to learn. I mean, I am involved in professional development myself, and one of the most difficult things, I think, is to create an atmosphere that people can fail or can take a risk. And it seems that what he was saying is that there's a lot of support that allows you to grow and not be afraid that you'll be judged in a negative way.
The big difference here is we're not fixing these teachers, right?
You know, you do a sort of counterintuitive approach. You really don't really deal with the weakest teachers.
So
yes,
we
why
focus
is
on
that?
excellence.
Okay.
So we had this fellows program. Great. We were trying to attract very talented people into teaching. But it became clear after a while that teaching was becoming more and more unattractive, and it was getting harder and harder. Right? You just have to read a newspaper to see. The rest of the country, the press, politicians, everybody, they all focus on the weak parts, on the weak teachers.
And are
And they're-
teachers to blame for everything?
They're all
going
trying to figure out, well, of course teachers aren't to blame for everything. By the way, I'm not saying there aren't weak teachers. There are weak teachers.
Okay.
I know that. But if you only focus on them, then the public only remembers all of the weak teachers. And we're actually working against our own interest here, because we're driving away talented young people from the profession by doing that, and we're driving away some of the best teachers.
Definitely.
And at the same time, we're making the profession more and more onerous into a kind of factory in which we're trying to create higher test scores. And so Math for America sets out to try to reverse that. And the way you make any profession better is to find the best people in it, focus on them, use them as models, use them as leaders, make sure that the public knows who they are, and make sure that other teachers know who they are. And in doing so, I mean, you're trying to sort of make teaching as a profession into something that people actually want to do, that it's attractive, and that it's a profession that will become somehow much more attractive to young, talented people.
Are you a local program or a national program?
Well, local and national.
Right, okay.
We have the New York program, which is by far the largest.
Okay.
We have almost 600 teachers in it now, including science in the master teachers. So we're no longer just mathematics. We've added science,
okay.
which has really changed things. But we also have smaller programs that are around the country, a mixture of fellows and master teachers in San Diego and Berkeley and Boston and Washington, D.C. There's 6 other sites, but New York is about 600 teachers and the others are about 200. So we're the biggest. We're slowly changing so that we're focusing more and more on master teachers and what we call early career, which is like a junior master teacher.
In terms of retaining teachers, then you envision this program, we're running out of time, but we envision this program, your program, as a way of helping teachers also stay in the field. So do they get this ongoing support? Does it last for a number of years?
So they come in and they're 4 years in the program, in the master teacher, but they can reapply, and they do reapply. They have to, it's the same application, and they actually have to reapply. But they can stay on for multiple periods of time, and many clearly will.
Any final thought as to how you envision math and science education as we move forward?
So we're
exciting kids, teachers.
Yeah, we're growing to 1,000 here in New York. That's the target right now. When we're 1,000, we'll be about 10% of the math and science teachers in New York, and we're hoping we can show that this idea of focusing on excellence is the right approach to reform. New York State has just created its own master teacher corps. It'll grow to about 400 this year, and maybe much larger in the year following, based on Math for America, the same idea. And I hope that even with these efforts, I mean, it's clearly not going to change all of education in the U.S., but I hope that this will show people that this idea of focusing on excellence actually is the right way to do reform, and that between New York City and New York State, we can convince other states, and maybe even eventually the federal government, that this is a different approach, but it's the right approach. The aim here is to put a great math and science teacher in front of every student in the country, and I would say not just math and science, but in all subjects. We want to do the same thing.
Seems like a model that we could extrapolate into many other areas. So thank you.
I hope so.
Very, very much for
Yeah.
joining us and for sharing the exciting program,
You're
Math for
welcome.
America.
Thank you.
Don't go away. We'll be right back with our Ed Bytes. Welcome back to this edition of Ed Bytes.
It may be difficult to get into Harvard, but it seems it might be easy to stay. According to the university, the most frequently awarded grade for undergraduates at Harvard University is an A. A spokesperson commented, quote, "We watch and review trends in grading across Harvard College, but we are most interested in helping our students learn and learn well," end quote. Some Harvard faculty members are concerned, however, about the grade inflation. Harvey Mansfield told the Boston Globe that he thought grading patterns were, quote, "really indefensible."
If you've seen babies swiping their fingers across a computer or tablet screen, you might be thinking too early or never too soon. The American Academy of Pediatrics recently published recommendations regarding children and media. Rule number 1, no screen time for children under 2. In these early years, experts say it is more important for children to interact with other people. While acknowledging the benefits of media, the report views it as potentially harmful to health and social development and advises establishing safeguards to protect children against overexposure.
To be sure our viewers are up to date on the latest educational terminology, we bring you the following. Some edtech companies and universities are no longer using the label course for their online offerings and prefer calling them learning experiences. How is a learning experience different from a course? Inside Higher Ed reports the term is being used to describe a module not anchored to a specific time or place. Users of the name change say it's a more accurate reflection of the many kinds of online learning that do not resemble the traditional 90-minute course format.
Video games, good or bad? Over the years, we've reported on numerous studies that often contradict each other. Now the respected journal American Psychologist has published The Benefits of Playing Video Games. Its meta-analysis of multiple studies shows, among other things, that first-person shooters improve three-dimensional thinking, a predictor of career success in STEM fields. Video game playing is correlated with creativity and persistence in problem solving, and playing violent video games cooperatively promotes cooperative behavior in the short term. Naysayers, however, say the studies prove nothing and are simple correlations or associations. Tune in next month.
Okay,
And that's it.
so Grand Theft Auto teaches you to be a good team player.
Video games are good for you for now, but you know what? I love reporting on contradictory studies. It is the fun of EdCast because there is no truth or what is truth.
It just goes to show you can find a study that'll tell you anything you want to hear.
In 2014, we will take on the topic of what is truth. Thank you for joining us for this edition of EdCast. Have a happy holiday.
Until next time, class dismissed.